Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Let me know if you can hear me, especially for those who are in the back. I'm going to try to be as loud as I can. I think for most of you who have been my students, probably know that I can get myself heard across very well. Thank you very much for coming. That's the first thing that I want to start with. Okay, I really much appreciate your time and your interest into this, not necessarily single dish, but we're also going to be discussing a little bit more about Peruvian cuisine as well. Um, just to go a little bit more about myself, as Javi was mentioning, I'm being in the industry for, it's going to be almost 17 years at this point. I've been cooking pretty much my whole life. I come on from a background, not necessarily of restaurant history, but more actually like a good taste. My grandma was a great cook. My mom is a good cook. And I happen to believe that I'm also a good cook as well. So I was very excited to show you a little bit of this traditional way of eating that I found when I was growing up in Peru. So the dish that we are going to be covering today is called causa. A little bit of the background about causa. So causa is probably going to be one of the most traditional and popular dishes in Peru. You go to any house and anyone is going to have their own way of preparing causa. The idea is going to be the same. Mix the potatoes with ají amarillo, which is a Peruvian pepper, combined with lime juice, salt and pepper, and a little bit of oil so you can make the dough more pliable. And then once you have that base, you essentially can fill it with anything that you want. The two most traditional fillings that you will find in any Peruvian household will be chicken and canned tuna. Okay, like those are going to be the most traditional ones. I guarantee you, if you decide to travel to Peru and you stay at any house and you ask for causa, they're either going to give you chicken or canned tuna. That's pretty much the whole thing. As you move across all Peru, you're going to find different variations of how the causa will be served. Those coastal regions will be more inclined to seafood, so you will find crab as the one that we are going to be doing today, and also shrimp. We also have a river shrimp. We don't necessarily call it, like it's not a prawn. In Peru, we call it like camarón de río, which is essentially like a type of shrimp that grows like in the river that normally in the south region of Peru. And when you go to the southern cities, that's where you find this variety. If you go to the north, causa will be served with fried pieces of fish and more like an escabeche sort of like idea with the onions topped into it. Now, if you move more to Lima, something that is happening more often, this is more like a new current, is something called causa cevichada, which is essentially the dough that we're making in today, served with probably one of most Peruvians' popular dish, which is ceviche. There's a combination of raw fish, lime juice, marinated, and they just like serve it on top of the causa. As you can see, Peruvians are crazy about causa. And there's actually a very good reason for it. The history behind causa, there's like different accounts into it, but it's always tied up into a main comment during Peruvian history. So the first notation about causa comes to the independence war, like back in the 1820s, when Peru was like fighting out for their independence. It's being said that after one of the generals won one of their first battle and celebrating in Lima, causa was served in the banquet in order to celebrate this, kind of like in order to establish that that was the first important battle that I was won for the independence of Peru. But the one that more people are inclined to it is also tied to another war. It's a war between Chile and Peru in the late 1800s. Okay, so it's being said that Peru at this time was bankrupted, got no money, nothing to say, and somehow decided to go to war. When they decided to go to war, they sent people over to the southern border, that's where Chile is located, and pretty much soldiers were left alone. Soldiers also, when they went into the battlefield, they brought along their relatives, wives, kids, so they can take care of them. Back in this time, like wives will be more of the health aid. They will be nurses. They will take care of the wounded, and they will also take care of the food. And in order to buy more ammunition, what they will do is, like it's being said, that they make this mix of potato, ají, which is very popular in Peru, things that they could just find close to the battlefield, and they put together this dish known now as a causa. And the reason for that, if some of you speak Spanish, causa, it translates to English to a cause. That's a cause. It's a causa. It's a cause. So they say that they will bring it out to the soldiers. They will also bring it out to the market to get some funds, and they will scream out, buy it for the cause. Hazlo por la causa. And they will be like, the cause will be the battle and the war. So that's how like the dish got established with the name, and therefore got like a strong attachment to Peruvian history and to Peruvian households. With that being said, I just want to point out a couple of ingredients about Peruvian food that to me are very important for you to know and are pretty much highlighted in today's dish. I'm gonna start with two, ají and papa, which is potato. Potatoes were domesticated in South America in the regions of Ecuador, Bolivia, and Peru, what is now known as Bolivia, and Ecuador, about 7,000 years ago. Okay, so Peruvians are very proud of their variety of potatoes. Nowadays, there is accounted about 3,000 different varieties of potatoes that you can find in the market in Peru. Like, I haven't been able to eat in all of those. I can probably got as far as like 20 or 20 something. But if you go like deep into the Andes, you can find people that are like farming potatoes, and they have like heirloom potatoes that no one has ever seen before, each one with their own little characteristics. So this is why potatoes are a very big deal in Peru. And again, I don't think I need to go over this about how potatoes became very important in the world. And I'm not gonna say it was just because of Peru, but it's like in all this region where potatoes got finally domesticated, and after after the Spaniards came over, everything started spreading around the world. Same idea with ají. Ají is the word that Peruvians and most of South Americans use to describe the hot peppers. You guys probably know it as chiles, okay? Ají, again, was domesticated in South America about 7,000 to 6,000 years ago. And then between the exchanges, the cultural exchanges with cultures ended up spreading across the whole American continent. The Mayans used ají, the Aztecs used ají, and any culture that you can find along the lines of the Americas, they pretty much use a type of hot pepper. The word ají is very interesting because it doesn't come from any native language in South America. It actually comes from the Taíno word, essentially like ají, which is what the Spaniards heard when they started coming in from Haiti, what is now known as Haiti, back in the early 1500s. In some regions in Peru, Ecuador, where like Quechua is spoken, Quechua being like the most predominant native language in this region, ají is known as uchu. So U-C-H-U. Uchu is the word that is being to describe ají, but everyone in Peru calls it uchu, unless you're coming from like a Quechua household that it can actually call it like that. You can travel to Peru, thank you, Liz. You can travel to Peru, and you will find places, especially in cities such as Cusco, Ayacucho, Andahuaylas, like deep in the Andes, where they're going to be calling like sauces that you can serve with Peruvian dishes, like call them uchucutas, which is actually means like a ají sauce. But that's about it. And then again, you know, like we can all see in different cuisines utilizing hot peppers. And again, I'm not saying this is just only thanks to Peru, but we are lucky. Peruvians, we're lucky to call ourselves like one of like the most historical important places in the world as far as food goes. Thailand wouldn't be the same without hot peppers. Italian food, especially in the South, wouldn't be the same without hot peppers. Same idea with some like the Indian cuisine, Mexican food, and all that. And everything just started by domesticating something super simple as a pepper. And then the third thing in which we're going to be added in this is obviously ceviche. Ceviche is the most popular dish in all Latin America. But all Latin American countries, they all have their own variation of ceviche, okay? They're all good. I like Mexican ceviche, I like Ecuadorian ceviche, I like Dominican ceviche. Everyone has a way of doing ceviche. The way of marinating fish in citrus is not something that wasn't new to everybody. Like pretty much each culture has its own way of marinating some type of protein or some type of vegetable with citrus. However, what makes Peruvian ceviche different is the Japanese influence. Japanese immigrants came to Peru in the early 1900s. This essentially, most of them started also moving to Peru after World War II, just like trying to escape the mainland and trying to find a place where they will find like a lot more peace. A lot of Japanese immigrants started entering the Peruvian territory. In the 80s, around the 80s, there was a very big flux of Japanese food establishments being opened in Lima. And what they started doing was more emphasizing and highlighting the seafood usage. So this is why ceviche becomes a little different, because until that point, ceviche was made just like any other country. Probably the same ceviche that you've seen like everywhere. The fish marinated and soaking in citrus for like an hour and half an hour in order to make sure the fish cooks. The Japanese came along and they say, no, we actually have this other way of eating fish that we call sushi or we call sashimi, and we actually preserve the freshness of the fish. And they started applying that technique to the ceviche. And then everyone in Peru loved it. Okay? Everyone in Peru loved it, and it became so popular that nowadays is essentially the most important dish in all Peru. You probably heard this before. Like every time I dare you to Google Peruvian cuisine, and then the first thing that's gonna pop up is gonna be ceviche. Okay? And ceviche, again, like being more important because of the Japanese influence. So, and then same idea. Go along all the territories. Everyone has a way, their own little way of eating ceviche. You go to northern Peru, you're gonna find ceviche made with mackerel, made with bonito, made with mahi mahi, like the fish that are like more popular found in that area. And then also they don't take just the fillet out. They actually cut out the pieces of bones and they also like mix it with everything else. So as you're picking up the pieces of fish, you also need to make sure that you remove the pin bones along the way. You go to Lima and you're gonna find the most like Japanese influenced one. You go to the south and you're gonna start seeing like being served like different mixes or so. Okay, so this is what makes Peruvian cuisine very rich, very vast. Is the different influences that we got from different places: Italy, France, Mexico, Japan, China. Probably are the most predominant influences that you can find along Peru. And it's very crazy because until I wasn't so much aware of this until I started investigating and getting myself a little more and more deep into what the gastronomy of the world is, that I started finding out very similarities with the other cuisines. I'm like, wait a second, like I grew up eating that and I never knew it had an Italian influence. I grew up this and I used to call this in a certain way, and I didn't even know that it was coming from an Asian influence. Like one quick example, and like I probably mentioned it with a couple of you, like if you were one of my students, it's the word for ginger. Like ginger in Peru is probably the only country in South America and any Spanish-speaking country where we don't call it jengibre, which is like just like the natural translation. We call it kion. We call it kion. You go to the market and you buy kion. You don't buy ginger. You don't buy jengibre. You buy kion. And I grew up just saying that until I finally, honestly, like I met some Chinese friends here in New York, and then when I was bringing that up, they were like, "Wait a second, that's how we say it in Chinese." And I was like, "I had no idea. I grew up all my life, and I guarantee you, even nowadays, there are like people out there that they didn't even know like why they call it like that, but it's just the influence that is impregnated in Peruvian cuisine." So that makes me happy. That makes me excited. I'm very, very glad that we're doing this so we can just dig in a little bit more into this marvelous and very broad cuisine. Any questions so far? No? We're good? Awesome. So let's talk causa. As I mentioned, the causa, it's probably one of the most popular Peruvian dishes. And obviously because it's highlighting two of the most important ingredients out of the Peruvian cuisine: potatoes and ají. So we start with the potatoes. Traditionally, potatoes are normally baked. No, sorry, are normally boiled, okay? Because that's like the easiest way to like cook them. I personally like to bake my potatoes when I'm using causa, because if you've ever made something that is potato based, let's say like a gnocchi, you want to avoid adding more moisture to your potato, because otherwise the potato will get like gooey. So in order for me to avoid that, I bake it. So I bake these potatoes at a 400-degree oven for about an hour, and now they're like nice and tender. I'm gonna use a tammy, which is essentially like a sifter. Okay, you probably seen this in like a lot of like baking videos where like they use it to sift the flour, but obviously we chefs like to use things at all for that as well. And all I'm gonna do by using my bowl scraper is just to press it down, and the sift is going to take care of stopping the skin from being pushed in. So I just gently pushed it, and I can see that now my skin is just super clean. I'm simplifying my life. Why would I do that? Well, most of you are students, so we always talk about this, right? Making this at home, I'm cooking 4 potatoes, right? It's easy, right? I can just make that without a blinking of an eye. But if you're doing this in larger proportions, it's going to be Like it's gonna take a long time if you're gonna be peeling each potato at a time. And it's something that you want to do when you are in a professional environment is to be very efficient, utilize your time. My first job experience was at a Peruvian restaurant in Lima. It's very, very big, but it was like just like a neighborhood restaurant, but it will get very busy. And one of the dishes that we will sell the most, it was causa. Not kidding you, but every day I will show up at 8 in the morning and we will have to boil about 50 to like 70 pounds of potatoes. And if not some more, because I'm sure I'm thinking about kilos. So it was like it's like about like 50 to 70 kilos actually of potatoes that we will use just in one day. And then trust me when I say this, like peeling all those potatoes and like passing them through the food mill, because not the food mill, we will use the ricer. At that time, I don't know why, just probably that's all they knew. It was new in my career too. Like I didn't know of the existence of a tammy. I didn't know of the existence of a food mill. But someone just brought me a ricer and they're like, we need to start smashing these potatoes. And I was just doing that, you know, like very workout. That's why normally moms, grandmas, they're like fairly strong, right? Like I talk about that analogy also when we like talk about pasta or anything, right? Like you're kneading things by hand. Now we have machines, we get spoiled, but we become more efficient. Again, we're doing it in a professional environment. So passing my potatoes, making sure everything is in there. And now I have my potatoes ready for seasoning. Potatoes are like very fluffy, very nice. Something that you want to avoid when you are cooking potatoes and you want to use them for causa is you don't want to overwork them. Okay, potato also has a starch. If you overwork it, especially as the potato is like cooling down, so the colder it gets, that the chances are growing to make it gooey. So I don't know if it's ever happened to you that you make something with potatoes and it just end up being like very like stretchy, very gooey, like very, very chunky, right? Like that's something just like the starch being activated. So that's we want to avoid doing that. So these potatoes just came out of the oven, so I'm just gonna leave them on the side so they can start cooling down a little bit before I start mixing them. So I'm gonna go with my filling. For today, we're making crab. I'm from Callao. Callao, it's a port city, okay? Right there next to Lima. A lot of people sometimes try to believe that it's like the same city. It's not the same. But one thing that Callao is known for is for seafood consumption. And I remember when I was a little kid, I will go to field trips with my classmates from elementary school. For some reason, they will always try to like take us to the beach, which she wasn't like very far. And the beach will have like rocks. It wasn't like sand or anything. It was actually like rocks. So one game that we will play is like, let's see how many crabs we can find. So we will like pull the rocks out of the shore. And then like at some point you will find like a crab and then you will pull it out and see like, hey, I found the crab. Or maybe the crab found you first and then like pinch your finger. But that's why I decided to do crab. It's also I like crab. We got crab meat in here. This is a jumbo lump. If you've ever bought crab meat, there's nothing bad with it. You can buy your own crab and try to boil it, peel it, and do so. Obviously, it's time consuming. It's also tasty, but don't be afraid of buying canned crab, especially like a better quality. It's always going to be a better flavor. But normally when they process these crabs, they catch them in the ocean, they automatically steam it. So they, believe it or not, like in those boats, they have like the cooking mediums to like do so. So they guarantee that everything stays as fresh. They cook it, they freeze it. They cook it, they freeze it. So very fast. And we're not talking about freezing it like we're doing here or you do it at home. We're talking about machines that are able to freeze things within minutes, okay, within seconds. So that guarantees that the product is still fresh, it's still nice. So this is a big lump. We're trying to keep things chunky so we don't end up like breaking the crab so much. And I got a little bit of mayo, got a little bit of lime juice, salt and pepper. And this right here is what I call my ceviche base. So this is a combination of habaneros, onions, celery, ginger, and garlic. Everything combined with a little bit of salt and a little bit of MSG just to like bring out all their flavors, and then it's just blended, okay? This is just the base that I will use, let's say if I was like making like a classic ceviche. The idea for this is just to like bring in a little bit more flavor into the causa. So we can just taste a little bit like something a little bit more rounded, not just like too bland, too flat. So gonna grab a little bit goes a long way, trust me. I'm gonna add a little bit of lime juice for some acidity. And then I'm just gonna turn this into like a quick salad. So I'm just adding my mayo. And I'm gonna mix it. Obviously, we season it. Salt. Pepper. I think I'm gonna add a little bit more mayo. And we're done. Oh. Obviously, there's no ceviche without cilantro. So I got some cilantro leaves, which I'm going to finely mince. And I'll add it in there. The idea for this is to just like be like nice and acidic, light. I know it has mayonnaise, but the intention of the mayonnaise is just to like make it like lightly creamy. And the idea of the ceviche base and the lime juice is to make sure to cut through it so it's not like too dense. I don't want you to feel like you're eating just like spoons of mayonnaise. That's good. Just need salt. So that's my base. Fresh, sharp, with a little bit of kick. I like it. It's good. So that's my filling. That's number one. Second item for my filling, avocado. Does anybody know how we call this in Peru? Because we like to call things differently. No? No? Palta. Yes. We call it palta. I think palta is also called in Ecuador, Colombia, if I'm not mistaken. Or in Argentina, they call it palta as well. I think aguacate, that's where like the word avocado also comes from. It's a Mayan or an Aztec word. Believe it or not, like those three important cultures, they never met each other. So the Incas never met with the Aztecs, the Incas never met with the Mayans, and vice versa. So they couldn't share dialects. And that's why, like, if you go to Peru, like, don't be surprised to like find menu descriptions saying like palta, and then you're gonna be like, what is palta? Like, I don't know. That was my experience moving into this country, going to the market and being like, I'm looking for palta. People would just look at me like being like, what is that? So avocado is nice and ripe. Gonna pull it out with a spoon. I'm just looking for some slices that I can use to layer my potatoes. Place it in there. So keep in mind that when you're using avocado for anything, you're smashing it, you're turning it into a puree, you're doing whatever you want to do with the avocado, you want to make sure that you prevent it from oxidizing. Okay, oxidization is just the process of some particles from any ingredient that are exposed to the oxygen, therefore the name. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to block the oxygen from the surface of these items. In this case, like one way to do so is by adding some type of acid. In this case, like lemon, lime, anything, just to like prevent it from oxidizing, from getting brown, from getting dark. Same idea with you doing like potatoes, for example. You're cutting up potatoes and you want to make sure they don't oxidize. You keep them in water, so that way, like that is preventing like everything from the air. If things start oxidizing, it's not just as simple as saying like, okay, I can still eat it. It actually alters the flavor. Okay, so when potatoes oxidize, when avocado oxidizes, they actually change the flavor, and they're not going to be as tasty as you want them to be. Okay, so always keep in mind that either you're cutting it right before you're about to use it, or you cover them in some lemon juice or some type of like acidity, so that way they prevent that oxidization. So I got my toppings. Oh, I was forgetting. Gonna do like a little garnish with my scallions. I like scallions. Scallions are used a lot actually in Peruvian cuisine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut them in a bias, but I want to do like a super, super sharp bias, okay? Because I'm just thinking about my garnish. So I'm gonna grab this, and with the tip of my knife, I'm just gonna go very long and thin strips of scallions that later I'm going to add to iced water. What the ice will do is will make them crispy, and also because of the length of the scallion, they will turn curly. So I got my scallions, place them in there, stir it a little bit, and let the coal do its job. You can do this trick not just for scallions, but let's say like when you're working with salads and you want to keep things nice, crisp, and fresh, you always want to submerge them in ice water. You are shaving some radishes, you're shaving some carrots, and you just want to add them to the salad. You want to make sure they're like nice and crisp. Submerge them in iced water for a couple of minutes. They're going to get like very, very crisp. Do you have some lettuce that is still good, but for some reason it's a little wilted? Submerge it in ice water. It will bring it back to life. Okay, so ice water is a very good friend for fresh things. And, you know, like I can automatically see some of these are like starting to like curl a little bit. So it's a good trick for like garnishes. So I'm gonna move this over here. Potatoes. So when I have my potatoes, I have my ají amarillo in here. Ají amarillo. It's always been my battle since I moved to this country. Ají amarillo is the staple of Peruvian cuisine. There's a couple, but you know, pretty much all dishes have ají amarillo into it. Ají amarillo, it's a pepper very similar to a jalapeno, if you will, but it's actually orange in color. Okay. This pepper needs a very warm and humid climate. And for that reason, it cannot find it fresh in here. I know of a couple of people, I am in touch with a couple of people in California, especially Northern California, where they're able to grow ají amarillo. When I used to work at Lamain, we will talk to like farmers to like see if they can grow it in this part of the country, but it was almost very impossible because of the weather. Almost in the East Coast, especially the Northern East, is very cold, not as humid, so we cannot really simulate the same tropical climate as we need for the ají. And then if you could, it will increase the price very much. So the best choice that you have if you want to like try this is to buy it frozen. That's the best one that you can find. You go to the market, you go to especially like any like Latin America like market, go to the frozen section, they probably have some ají in there. What I did is I took the veins and the seeds out of the ají. This is not a very spicy pepper, but we still don't use it for spiciness. We use it for more of its flavor, its sweetness. Okay, so I removed the seeds and the veins, put them in a pot with water, and I boiled it 3 times. We normally do this in order to make sure that we tenderize the pepper, but we also remove the heat out of it. Again, as I told you, like Peruvians, we do like heat, but it's not necessarily added to the dish at its own. We normally like to add it like on the side. So like little like sauces on the sides are more popular than making the dish itself very spicy. So after I did that, I drain it and I put it in a blender, and that's what I have in here. It's like very like bright, concentrated ají amarillo paste. So that's gonna be the base for my causa. I'm gonna add my ají amarillo, my potatoes. Oh, traditionally, since we were talking about potatoes, traditionally, causa is being made with papa amarilla. Papa amarilla is it's a type of Peruvian potato, which is like very round, and you know, like it's yellow. Amarilla translates to yellow. It is very starchy, very creamy. Okay, it's honestly delicious. Okay. The closest thing that we can find is just like Idaho russet potatoes in here. You can find papa amarilla, but just frozen. And I personally am not a fan of that type of potato just for that frozen, because when you're freezing things, the water molecules tend to expand. When it expands, it changes the structure of the potato. So probably when you eat like frozen potatoes, it doesn't taste sometimes very creamy. It has like a little bit like mealiness. That's like the water like molecules expanding. And if it's not like frozen properly, it's even like worse. So that's why I'm not a very fan of that. Unfortunately, not yet and I don't think it's going to be one of those things that is going to be possible to ever do. You cannot find like actual Peruvian potatoes, like at least like fresh in the American market. Flavor is also very different. I always like talk to friends about this. Like I like potatoes in here. Like I'm not talking bad about them, but it's like potatoes in Peru, they're just like so super different. If you decide to go to Peru, like the first thing that I recommend you do is just like buy yourself some potatoes and eat them. Like we like them so much. They're even like if you go to like any market or like any corner of the streets, like very busy streets, you're gonna find someone with a little laundry cart with some boiled potatoes and some type of ají, so they can just like serve it on top of you. And that's like a quick snack. You buy, you pay a sol, and then like you just like go by your way. You get like 1 or 2 potatoes with some type of sauce and just keep eating it. But this type of potatoes are like very, very special, very unique for this dish. Okay, like the rest, it's still good. It's gonna work fine. Okay, we're gonna make it like to be very tasty. Okay, and but like papa amarilla or even another one called as papa guairo will be like the ones like more specific for this. And what I'm about that, I always like to emphasize that for any cuisine, Peruvian, Mexican, Chinese, Thai, whatever it is, the options that you're gonna find in here, at least like, and I'm saying that as a chef, as a Peruvian chef who is like always trying to like portray like dishes from my own country, they're gonna be always as close as we can with what we have in hand. So I'm never going to pretend that this is gonna be the same as you will find it in Peru. It's always gonna be very different. And I'm saying this because sometimes like a lot of people like have that like little argument, you know, it's like, oh, it just doesn't taste the same. It's like, yeah, because it's not the same. We're just trying to get as close as we can. And that's the battle that we have in here as like foreigner chefs. We're always trying to like find ways to make things the way that we saw them in our main country. Okay, so back into the causa. Potatoes, ají amarillo, gonna add some salt, some pepper. And we got some lime juice in here. And lastly, a little drizzle of oil. Fat, for that matter, not necessarily oil, because some variations of some people that make causa, they like to add mayonnaise, for example. What is mayonnaise? Mayonnaise is oil, right? It's just oil emulsified with egg. And so we are like adding the same idea. But the purpose for the oil is just to make the potato more pliable. Otherwise, it's just going to start crumbling apart. It's going to start falling into pieces. And I don't want that. I want it to be like pliable, like a literally like a piece of Play-Doh. So it's like I'm combining everything. And you see, like I'm also want to be gentle. I'm not trying to go too crazy. I'm just folding things in just to make sure that I keep the potatoes light and fluffy. And then I'm just gonna test it. You grab it, as long as you're able to like good to shape it. If I can put it up around my finger and it goes around, I mean, this is a good potato. It doesn't need more oil. If it starts breaking, it might need a little bit more oil. Obviously, you don't want to overdo it, because if you overdo it, then by the time it starts getting cold, it's also gonna start falling apart. So you just wanna add a very minimal amount for this. I need a spoon. Flavor, we're looking for obviously like ají amarillo flavor, but we also want to have like a little bit of hint of acidity from the potato. Sorry, from the lime. We need more lime. And more salt. You always need salt, right? Causa. So the reason for this to be very moldable is that you can essentially build it up into any shape that you want. Most traditionally, this is made family style, meaning that whenever I will make it home, my grandma will make it home, my mom will make it home, they will put this into a large tray. Imagine like building up like a big potato cake. And then essentially when you come up to the party and you like have like people coming over for dinner, you cut it up into pieces and you're pulling it out in like little pieces. Like that's another way why causa is like so important. Again, it means like good moments, family, you know, like unison. Probably like if you go to any culture, those dishes that are like more popular within that country. There are probably dishes that are more attached to like the household, the family bonds, and all of that. Because there's also a way of like sharing things. Food is all about that. Food is about sharing. Like there's nothing good, like about cooking something if you're not able to share with people that you care about. So that's another reason why I'm very happy, very excited to be here, because I can actually show you this. So causa is here. I'm gonna grab a little piece. You can feel the lime. There's more salt. Good. So we're getting there. So you can see, I can easily mold it around anything. And I got my causa ready. So I have everything I need. I have my base. I got my salad. I got my garnishes. So I'm ready to start plating. Oh, I forgot I don't have a plate. Where's my ring? Give me a second, right here. Can you bring me a plate from the back? Sorry. Forgot about the plate. Bring everything but the plate. How are we doing so far? We good? Any questions about the causa? About Peruvian food? I like talking about Peruvian food, so just give me anything that you have. Huh? Yeah, so we were just talking about that also. Like the two most popular ones will be the chicken and your tuna. I mean, especially a canned tuna. Octopus is another one that is also popular. I really like the octopus, and traditionally the octopus is normally served with. Thank you very much. With an olive aioli. Essentially, like potato octopus goes very well with olives. So you can just like a simple combination of like olives, maybe like some herbs, like mix it with some mayonnaise, and that's what you want to top your octopus with. So I mean, you can make it with shrimp, you can make it with just like vegetables. And the interesting part is like moving along different places, you're gonna be finding also like people putting different things. I'll tell you like this, like chicken, it was like probably the most popular one made at home. My mom will add some peas and carrots into the mix of the chicken. My grandma will add like avocado, tomatoes into the layer of the chicken and put the chicken on top. And then some people, so and that's what I'm gonna do today. Traditionally, like they finish and they garnish it with some like boiled egg, just to like add some more of this. Like this is like very classic, and I don't know, I'm not 100% sure why, but there's a lot of homemade traditional Peruvian dishes that are garnished with olives and boiled egg. It's like in the program, so some of you who are already like going through module 3, we have ají de gallina, which is a Peruvian dish. It's like a mixed combination of chicken with ají amarillo. It's a creamy sauce, and it gets garnished with boiled eggs and olives. You got papa la huancaína, which is another one, like another base like Peruvian, like potatoes over like a cheesy like sauce with like amarillo, and then it gets garnished with boiled eggs and olives. Like, what's the reason? I have a question over there. Sorry, I'm gonna get the mic. The ones that we use the most are the Alfonso olives, which are gonna be like the dark olives. Yes. Although like I don't. I mean, it's interesting because I call it Alfonso, but the actual type of olive that we use in Peru is called botija. Very similar to the Alfonso. Like Alfonso, it's like very meaty, but botija is like a little bigger. Same characteristic, but it's just like a little bigger. But that's the one that we use the most for garnishes, like bull egg and an Alfonso olive in there. Yeah. Huh? Caldo de gallina. Juane. Oh, but that's more Juane. So I like that. And to me, I mean, I can talk like this is. I'm gonna extend a little bit more on that answer. There's different ways. Like Peru is broken down into 3 regions. More importantly, the coast, the Andes, and the Amazon or the rainforest. We call it the selva. Most of the times when we see food from Peru, it's like probably most from like the coast, because that's where the capital is located. That's where Lima is located. And like a lot of this food, like causa, ají de gallina, ceviche, lomo saltado, like anything that you can like probably more familiarize with, like, you know, like restaurants that you can find within the area. There are more dishes from this region. However, now, especially more in the early 2000s, there was like a boom of Peruvian cuisine, and more stuff from like the Andes was like allocated and being like highlighted even more. We saw like more utilizations of potatoes, other tubers, because there's also like a lot of variety of like tubers in Peru. Talking about oyucos, we're talking about yucas, we're talking about I forgot the name, ocas, we're talking about mashuas. So there's like different things, different tubers that are used in this area. But the one that, so for some reason, it has never been fully explored is the Amazon, is the rainforest. And we find like cities where like a lot of variety of dishes, like Juane is one of those. And Juane is like very similar to other Caribbean or like tropical weather places that you can see. It's like it's rice made with like hand, and you essentially combine it and compact it in banana leaves, and then you steam it like that. So essentially, it's kind of like a rice chicken tamale, if you will. But it's very popular in the, and especially in the selva. We're talking about like Pucallpa, Iquitos, Madre de Dios, and all of those. And it's normally served with like a relish, like a fresh salsa made out of cocona, which is it's a fruit that is found in the Amazon. And it's also, it uses a different peppers called charapita, which I wish I had like all of this so I can show it to you, but I don't. Charapita is like a spicy pepper that is like very, very tiny. You know, a gooseberry, right? Like it's smaller than a gooseberry, but similar in color. And trust me when I say this, like that little pepper like that can be like spicy for like a lot of things. So you don't use a lot of it. So it's like that's one. And funny enough, how do you think you garnish it? You garnish it with an olive and a boiled egg. That's actually very interesting. I don't know why we do that, but in Peru we do that a lot. It's like papa la huancaína, boiled egg, olives. Juane, boiled egg, olives. Actually, causa, it's the same. It's just like I don't like olives, so that's why I didn't bring an olive. So got my plate. So we're gonna be doing like a very small individual plating, similar to the one that you guys will be tasting. So got my potato right here. I'm gonna build up a little layer. I'm gonna have my spoon help me with it. I used to work. There's some of you guys are probably, I mean, if you're not, like, there is in the culinary world, there's always different trends, right? One day we were for like the farm to table, nose to tail. Then we went to like, you know, like it's all about fermentation. It's all about this. It's all about that, right? In Peru, it's like the same idea. And now what you see more highlighted in Peru, it's DK, which is like Japanese influenced food. These are like restaurants that are just like going like very like popular nowadays. Like we got Maido, which is like very popular in the world, very expensive too. I've never been there. But I remember, now that I'm talking about causa, I remember when I was working back in 2009 at this restaurant in Peru, we had a causa roll, which essentially we use the idea of a maki, but using causa instead. So we will do like shrimp tempuras. We will do the causa dough, put it in the bamboo sheet, put the nori in between, and then like put some avocado, the shrimp tempura, a little bit of a sauce, and then we just roll it. And it will be delicious. It will be really great. Like it's very interesting how causa is so versatile that it can actually like go very well with like any other dish. That you can add something as strong and as characteristic as the nori, which is like you can feel like if you put nori on something, you can actually taste it. And the causa will just pair with it nicely. And you can put it with something such as like very sweet, like the crab, and it will just go well very nicely too. So that's the beauty of causa. That's what makes this dish very, very important into all of those. I saw like other people also doing like fried causas, like they will like roll it in like tempuras and kind of like fry it. You will have to be very precise in order to get the right amount, because causa is not something that you want to heat up. Causa is something that at least has to be room temperature, if not cold. And when you start exposing it to the heat, you start losing the characteristics of the causa at this point, like the freshness of the potato, the brightness of the lime juice, and so you know, like I wouldn't try to expose it so much to the heat. So I got my layer of potato. Now I'm adding my avocado. Obviously, I want to make sure my avocado is tasty, so I'm gonna add my salt, and then I'm gonna grab my crab salad. See, it's like nice and wet, not runny, but I don't want it to be dry. And lastly, I finish it with more potatoes. Once everything is in there, just gonna clean up just a little bit. With the help of the spoon, I'm gonna try to remove the ring mole. And I have my causa right there. Now, I'm gonna garnish it. This right here, we just made like a quick spicy mayo. I put some togarashi in there just to like still like emphasize a little bit of the pepper and kind of like the flavor of the sesame. It just like brings it up. A little bit of lime juice, just a little bit of sriracha, just like something that can like pair nicely with this. So I'm just gonna put it on top. I got my eggs. I grated the eggs, so that way they're, you know, like easier to eat. So like each bite just has like a little bit of eggs. And then lastly, I'm gonna come back to my scallions. So I'm gonna pull them up. See, like, I don't know if you can tell, but oops, the coal just like made them curl a little bit. That's why we want to do this trick. So I'm just gonna make sure it's like drained. So I don't want to put water in there. And I'm just gonna garnish it like this. Just clean up a little bit. And that's it. That's a causa. Layers of potato, layers of avocado, which is probably like also like a very common filling that you're gonna find along all the causas. In this case, we made crab. You can use chicken, octopus. You can use canned tuna, shrimp. What else? Just vegetables. I'm trying to think of something unusual that I've seen in this. Not that much. And then you top it with something. Okay, like it's a little bit of the idea of the Peruvian cuisine. It's this the utilization of different sauces for all the dishes. For example, right now we made like a quick like spicy mayo, something that I had like just close by. However, like if you were in Peru, you can probably find like different versions of ají. Well, what I call ají is also like not just the pepper, but it's what is also known for like the sauces that is like used into it. So you can use like an ají like made out of rocoto, which is like another pepper. You can make ají with like huacatay, which is like a black mint that grows in Peru. You can make like anything. Like also like each household might have their own recipe for ají, and they you know, like they essentially just make it and then that's how you top it. Fresh, creamy, believe it or not, light, because like the potatoes like being kept like so light and so fluffy that it doesn't feel like you're like eating like too much of it. Okay. And this is a dish honestly like that has been like present in my life for like pretty much ever. Like I have memories of the causa since I was a little kid. I have memories of the causa like being present with me when I started off my career. I got nightmares about making causa too, because again, like as I mentioned it, like we will do like kilos and kilos and kilos of causa. Then every day I will wake up and be like, oh God, like tomorrow I have to go and peel more potatoes and press more potatoes. But eventually everything just ended up like turning out well. Every day I will show up and I will still try to do well. Every day I will try to make sure that I will nail the consistency of the dough, the flavor of the dough, and also like making sure that you keep it well. Like if you were to use this for later, let's say, you want to make sure that you keep it in the fridge because you have the ají, which is highly perishable. You have the lime juice, where again, it's also perishable. And also you have to keep in mind that you're adding acid to a potato, which is going to start speeding up a little bit of the breakdown of the starch. So things, if you don't keep it cold, things are just going to start breaking down fairly fast. And then at the end of the day, you're going to have something that is not going to be good. So yeah, so that's the causa. I like this version. I'm a very big fan of the crab causa. And I'm very pleased. So I did it for a cause. We did it for a causa. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ah, good. So, I mean, I can tell you what I've seen going for. The pricing is always going to depend on where you're working. Okay, like a mom and pop's establishment might have a smaller margin of pricing. If I'm selling this at a, you know, like a three Michelin star restaurant, you know, like I can probably charge a lot more. But I've seen the sell like a portion like this go for like between like $15 and $20. And when you think about it, you might be like, oh, that's very small. Well, it's the filling what actually makes it more expensive. And as a matter of fact, it's also the peppers. Because as I mentioned it, the peppers is not something as easy as to find in the market. So if you go to the market and buy like a bag of like peppers, they normally come 5 or 6 peppers. They're going for like $5 or $7 depending on the place or if they're on sale or not. So that to make the pace increases the price. So I will say like anything between 15 and 20 on like New York nowadays prices for sure. You know, they will go for that. Yeah, good. The more recipe, the more what? Without the ají, I can hear the last thing. Sorry, it's a little. As a sauce? Oh, the topping sauces. Yeah. So just kind of like put like a very general example, right? Like when we go eat tacos, right? Like we find like they serve with either like salsa roja or verde, right? So it's the same idea in Peru, but sauces can like change like very different. The most popular ones, for example, for a causa could be one called huancaína, which is very popular in Lima. It's ají amarillo. There we go again. Queso fresco, evaporated milk, some crackers, and some onions and garlic. So you put all of that into a blender and it turns into this like creamy consistency sauce. It's like very sweet, very bright. If you want to make it a little spicier, you can put the pepper with the seeds and then you use it for this. It's like very versatile. You have the same ají, onions, garlic, and then you add some huacatay, which is it's a Peruvian black mint. It's very interesting. They used to grow it in the garden. I haven't seen it, but whenever I get the chance and I see you around, I will tell you go check it out. It's very unique, and that will be like another one. And people normally like to add like also like peanuts into it, just to like make it like more round. There's other ones like there's another pepper called rocoto, which looks like a round like pepper, bell pepper. It's also like very spicy, more utilized in the Andes and in the south. And they add like same idea, queso fresco, onions, garlic. They just like some people come with like different recipes for all of that. For causa, I personally like huancaína, or I like a quick like spicy mayo, which we also have over there. We just use rocoto mayonnaise, mix it up, and you know like add it into this. So that will be like something like very usual in different like in different places for different cuisines. Don't be surprised if you go to like any place and they serve you like a little pot with like a heat, just something that you can add into it to make it spicier, to make it creamier, to make it a little more wet or so. And very interesting. Since we're talking about sauces, so you're curious about that. I hope everyone is the same. How many of you guys have been to a Peruvian restaurant here in New York or like any place? Yes. So when you go in there, you guys see that they sell like a little like green sauce along the ways? Yeah. You don't find that in Peru. You don't find that in Peru. Like I actually learned about that when I moved to the States. I saw it. And it's very interesting that that green sauce has become very attached to Peruvian cuisine. And I will call that's that Peruvian American thing. If you go to Peru, you don't find it. Like I dare you to go to Peru, like walk around Lima, try to find a place that's gonna sell you that. You're not gonna find any. And what I learned is that there's this sauce was created for two reasons. One, it wasn't that popular to find Peruvian ingredients as it is nowadays. Nowadays it's still limited, but think of like the early 90s, the 80s, like good luck trying to find Peruvian ingredients. So what Peruvians did, they accommodated a way of like Colombians and Venezuelans have to like make like spicy sauces, which is like using the cilantro, scallions, and all of that. And then eventually they adapted it to like the green sauce that we find nowadays in Peruvian places. And now when you think about that green sauce, think about it as like something like, like related to Peru, but that's like more like American Peruvian, which is amazing because like that's how we can like calculate that Peruvian food starts to expand a little bit more because you start seeing it adapted to other cultures, just the same way that we have adapted other cultures to our food. Other question, Abby. Cooking techniques, as far as the filling, honestly, you want to stay as simple as possible. So either boiling things or just like blanching them like super quickly is the best way that you can approach it. The idea for the fillings, it's not so much for them to like have like if you roast vegetables, for example, it's more about the sauce that is around this more than anything. However, as I was mentioning earlier too, like there are like some variations, especially like other parts like outside of Lima, where this is combined with like cooked ingredients. I was talking about like the fried pieces of fish with the satay onions on top of this or so. And then like like we were like bringing up like more of that. So I guess like that will be like another way, like maybe like stir frying, which is like very common also in Peru, like to be utilized for this as well. I like grilled octopus. That's something that I ran one time as a special at a restaurant, just like grilling the octopus, kind of like making. So there's this dish in Peru called anticuchos, which is like the beef heart, but the marinade is what makes it like very special. It's a hipanca, which is another type of pepper with red wine vinegar, oregano, cumin, pepper, garlic, etc. And I like to marinate the octopus with it. When you grill it, those like flavors just translate to something very, very tasty. And if you top that causa with it, it will be just great. I like that. Yeah. I got a question over there. I'm sorry. It's not you. It's the mic just echoes too much. I cannot hear. I can hear you. Can you? When you boil peppers, you do it 3 times, yes? Yes. Sorry. So yeah, we boil it 3 times, and this is more like a habit that I still keep with me, because when I was back in Peru, I will deal more with the actual fresh pepper. And when you're dealing with the fresh pepper, you want to boil it at least 3 times in order to make sure that you're releasing the heat of the pepper. The frozen ones, they tend to be a little bit more mushy just because, again, like they're going through the freezing process, which changes the structure of it. But yes, 3 times is what I recommend. And what's the second question? Technical difficulties. You guys can go ahead and start eating, please. Don't wait for anything. Please, let me know what you think. Huh?
And the other question is when you're in this kind of restaurant and you want to keep it full, you add lines and pickup rather than
So, especially for this dish, you will have everything ready, as I just did it. The because the more that you want to do is perhaps pre-plating a couple, but as you can see, I mean, from just like the one that I plated, like things are starting to like drip a little bit. So if we do that too far and ahead, like it's not gonna taste as well. So this is something that you literally want to plate at the moment. I had this dish many times in other places, and we will build it up to order, which sometimes will be very difficult. I had it in a brunch menu once, and people will come and order. Sometimes, like my cooks will be like backed up with like plating 10 or 12 of this, and you know it will become very difficult because you have to be very patient with it. The best way if you're trying to become more efficient as far as the plating will be doing like family style, just like the one that I was mentioning that people normally do it at home. When big family dinners, they need to feed like at least 20 people on like a Sunday afternoon. They just do a one big one, and then all you have to do is just pull out like every single piece. But I will say it goes along with how you are intending it to plate. Do you want something a little cleaner? Do you want something to be a little bit more rustic, like family style, if you will? I think that will be determining like how you will plate it as well. Abby will go with the mic. Yeah, there are. I mean, it's very. I like it because nowadays there's a lot more information and a lot of more variety of like Peruvian cuisine out there. There is obviously the cookbook, which is called Peru Cookbook. That's by Gaston Acurio. To me, like one of the best Peruvian chefs that is out there in the world. I always like to emphasize this is without every cuisine has the person that helped it like jump or like catapulted to like where the cuisine it is nowadays. And to me, like that's Gaston Acurio. Gaston Acurio, it might not be his restaurants, might not be as well awarded as other restaurants in Peru, but literally like there will be not one of them without Gaston. And there will be no drive in Peruvian cuisine without Gaston in the early 2000s. So that's one Peru cookbook by Gaston. Another one is called. Let me just double check it. I don't want to like tell people. I think it's called Ceviche. Yeah, it's called Ceviche. Has like it's by Martin Morales. It's called Ceviche. It's actually a very good cookbook. They got good, very solid recipes, and it's I like that one as well. And another one for Peruvian cuisine that I can think of, any by Virgilio Martinez that you can find right now. Virgilio Martinez is the chef of Central, and he has like some quite interesting cookbooks. His exploration of Peruvian cuisine, like you're gonna be able to find like a lot more information about some of the ingredients, and his dishes are more like modern, if you will. Like he's like trying to like modernize a little bit more like the Peruvian cuisine or so. So if you're looking into something more like that, I will call like for any of that, like the Central or the Coye or like any of those cookbooks that you can find in the market. Yep. Yeah, another question, Abby. If I have if I have him dining at Central before, you're talking about the restaurant itself? Yeah. So I actually had the opportunity to go there for dinner back in 2018. They were still not number one, but they were still considered number five. So I took my chance and I went in there. Luckily, because good luck trying to find reservations now, they're considered like one of the best restaurants. I will call it an experience. I will call it an experience. Food was great. food was good. You know, like if you are someone that wants to appreciate food from that point of view, which I consider myself, I am. Like I look at the dishes and I see the technique, I see the thought behind it, I see how elaborated it needs to be, like how like like they're like trying to present you in this. That will be a great place. I don't think I will go again unless like I'm invited. If Virgilio is listening, like next time I'm in Lima. But that will be most because same idea. Like I'm more like drawn, and this is my opinion as a Peruvian person that goes back to Peru. When I go back to Peru, I want to eat like the food that I'm not, I don't really eat as much when I'm here. Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean that's always the argument because and this is interesting because I went with my wife to that restaurant. And when we walked out of the dinner, I was like blown away. I was like, oh my God, like you see this, like I saw that it was so cool that he used this. And she's like, yeah, like it was okay. And like and we had this like conversation to like, what is your expectation for the restaurant? So if you're going to Central or you're going to any of those like tasting menus, like highly awarded like restaurants, because you want to like, let's say like eat a lot, like that's not the place. That's not the place. So I think more to just like one specific place, my opinion or my advice into things like this is always make sure that you know where you're going for dinner. Like if I'm in the mood for something more rustic, more family style, then I wouldn't go to 11 Madison Park for that, and I'm not gonna hold them accountable for not serving what I was expecting. But I really enjoyed Central. I really like what he's doing in there. Oh my God. Everybody always asks me the same questions. Like, Chef, what's the best Peruvian restaurant? Um, I can tell you which ones I like. I mean, I worked at those places, and not because I worked there, but I will always recommend Lama Inn. I think like the food in there is like very, very good. It's it's not, I wouldn't consider like traditional Peruvian food. Lama Inn, Lama Inn. Lama like the animal, Lama, no, Ma, and in like a hotel, INN. It's in Williamsburg. They have been open for quite a while right now. I think it's like 8 years, and they have like a good approach into how to mix New York with Peru, but still like making sure that Peru is like the one being emphasized the most. After that, if you want to try like traditional Peruvian food, one close by it that is super good is called Don Ceviche by the Essex Market. They actually have like a good ceviche. They have good chicken, and then I will have to send you all the way back deep into Queens for Urubamba, which is it's in 37th Avenue. It's in Jackson Heights. There's another like staple like Peruvian restaurant. They've been open for like very well a long time, and they are very popular among Peruvians. Two more. I actually have two more. No, two more recommendations. Oh, the Urubamba. That's a Urbamba. Urubamba. It's a city. Another one. Again, it's in Jamaica. It's called Caleta 111. Guys, it was considered among the 100 best restaurants by Pete Wells in the list that came out yesterday, second year in a row. I worked with the owner for a couple of months, and he makes a very mean ceviche. So if you're looking for like a seafood Peruvian restaurant, that's the place to go. Like it's very good. It's worth it. It's worth the trip. And if you want to try something a little different, I will recommend Chifa, which is again in Queens. It's Chifa. It's Chinese Peruvian food. It's very popular in Peru as well. And this is a cash only establishment, so just bring cash because they're not going to take the cards. But there you can find like very like Peruvian Chinese dishes and traditional ones in there. It's like very tasty. I try to visit it at least like once a month because I like it so much. So that will be like my main recommendations. Then there's like so many open up like every day, which I like very much about that. When I moved back in 2010, I didn't see that many options. And nowadays, like it makes me very happy to see the one that, you know, like I was able to found like the Llama group, which I worked for. And then I can see like more other places opening up. You have like Mission Ceviche in the Upper East. You have you know, like you have like Don Ceviche opening up. And if you go to like Long Island City, you have also Jora. You have like different restaurants that are opening up here and there with more Peruvian cuisine, which is a good sign. It means that it's becoming more popular. Like people, it's in higher demand. And at the end of the day, you know, like it opens up the door more for like chefs like myself that we can try to like portray that and show it. Like one day, you know, I hope I can have one of those. Any question? 5 more questions. Yes. Okay. For food? Yeah. It's interesting because a lot of people are doing that nowadays. I will recommend, I would say 3 cities that at least you need to go if what you're doing is like going in for food. Yeah. So and my advice will be like it's super. I mean, I would like to add 4. So I don't. I was talking about like always the Amazon being left alone. I was about to do the same. So I would recommend 4. Lima, obviously, it's like where you're gonna find the most variety of everything. Lima is also where like the most popular restaurants will be. I will highly recommend going to northern Peru. I will recommend going to Piura. Okay, Piura has like a very like rich cuisine as well. You know, like that's also like some of my family come from Piura, and like if you like seafood and any like related like to that, like you're gonna find like probably the best ceviches right there in Piura. Then I would recommend Arequipa, which is in the south. Arequipa is like it's a city in the Andes, but they're also very well known for their food. Okay, like it's very unique. It's very based on like classic techniques, like classic ingredients, classic ways of eating. Normally, the establishments are known as chicherias. No, sorry, that's in the north. It's I forgot the name. Picanterias. That's how they call them. So essentially, the idea was just like random places throughout the city where like people will go and like you find like a big table like that, and then everyone is sitting on the same table. That's like a traditional way of doing so. And then the last one will be like Iquitos. You know, Iquitos is in the Amazon, and so they have like probably one of the most diverse markets in the Amazon where you can find like different things. Like I think I forgot the name of the market right now, but it's like very popular. And I will be that. And I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna leave it. I'm not gonna leave it outside. I will highly recommend going to visit my hometown, Callao, which is like close to Lima, and we also have like a lot of like great food that it should be highlighted more. Because a lot of times it's like people just like bridge Callao and they don't go visit it. And I will highly recommend you guys dig a little bit more into that. That's it.
One more.
What dish? This one? Causa. 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 Yep.
All right. Thank you all for coming today.
Thank you very much, everyone. Hope you like it. Thank you.